from the revival capital of the world. This is Victory.
Hello, welcome to Victory News, Monday, January the 13th, 2025. I'm Greg Stevens, along with Mike Garofalo, Fiora Hernandez, and Tim Fox. And here are a few of the stories that we're watching for you right now. Republicans are ready to protect babies that survive abortions through new legislation. We'll talk with Mass Exodus Movement founder Keisha King about this and more. And social media giant Meta is dumping its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. So is DEI finally dead? We'll talk with the Institute for Faith and Culture Senior Fellow and author of the books Adversity and Diversity and the newest one, The Gay Affair, Dr. Carol Swain, all about it. But first, let's go to Mike Garofalo with our headlines. Mike.
Greg, red flag fire weather warning has been extended to the middle of this week in a number of counties in Southern California, including Los Angeles and Ventura. Firefighters are entering day 6 in their battle with wildfires that have destroyed thousands of homes since last Tuesday. The death toll from the Eaton and Palisades fires currently stands at 24, but that number is expected to rise. On Sunday, L.A. County Sheriff Robert Luna gave an update on the missing persons.
We have 16 missing person reports. We have 12 in Eaton and 4 in Palisades. If there's any good news, there's no juveniles that are missing within those numbers. But I know just coming here this morning, it sounds like we just got dozens and dozens more. I have to reconcile those numbers.
The sheriff also disclosed 29 looters have been arrested, including one disguised as a firefighter. According to the Washington Times, more than 600 National Guard soldiers have been activated to deter the looting. AccuWeather released a preliminary estimate of damage and economic loss between $135 and $150 billion. Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley shocked television viewers in the City of Angels in this interview on Friday with local station Fox Channel 11.
Did the City of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
Crowley was called to the office of Mayor Karen Bass after the interview with reports saying she'd be fired, but she was not. Chief Crowley was also asked about a 117 million gallon reservoir in the Pacific Palisades.
Sandra Endo, one of our anchors, wants to know if the department is advised that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was going to be emptied. Were you aware that there was no water there?
No, we weren't aware of that.
Amazing. Crowley also spoke with CNN's Jake Tapper on Friday, saying the department lacked enough firefighters and mechanics to repair emergency vehicles. And Newsweek discovered evidence that just a few months prior to the horrific and most expensive wildfires in U.S. history, California Governor Gavin Newsom approved $101 million or more in cuts from 7 wildfire and forest resilience programs. Fox News reports the cuts included $28 million from state conservancies that expand wildfire resilience and $4 million removed from the Forest Legacy program, which encourages landowners to manage their properties. Gavin Newsom defended his actions on national television Sunday, but found the questions from NBC's Jacob Soboroff anything but softballs.
Does the buck stop with you?
I mean, you're governor of California. You might as well be the mayor of California. We're all in this together. We're all better off. We're all better off. We're all better off. And we're working together to take care of people.
Newsom went on to say those who are pointing fingers for the poor response to the fire are trying to divide people, not unite them. Fiora.
Mike, President Joe Biden's farewell address has been scheduled. It will take place this Wednesday, January 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time from the Oval Office. Listen to Biden back in September giving his farewell address to the United Nations General Assembly in New York, where he reflected on his decision to drop out of the presidential race.
This summer, I faced a decision whether to seek a second term as president. It was a difficult decision. Being president has been the honor of my life. There's so much more I want to get done.
Before his farewell to the nation, Biden will deliver a speech on foreign policy today at the State Department. And Joe Biden extended deportation protections Friday for nearly 1 million illegal immigrants living in the United States. Politico reported that temporary protected status was granted to those from El Salvador, Sudan, Ukraine, and Venezuela, just ahead of the Trump administration's expected tougher immigration stance. The protection allows individuals from those countries to renew work permits and grants certain deportation protections. The Daily Caller reported El Salvador, which received TPS in 2001, would have seen its designation end in March, but Biden cited the heavy rain and stormy weather in the region as reasons for the extension until September 2026. Democrat lawmakers had called for Biden to issue the extensions, emphasizing his final days were a, quote, critical window before Trump takes office. Mike?
Special counsel Jack Smith resigned from the Department of Justice on Friday as court battles escalate about blocking Smith's confidential Trump report. Smith's report covers Donald Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election and his handling of classified materials. A federal judge put a hold on releasing the report due to ongoing legal issues. Smith's resignation was included in a footnote of a court filing on Saturday as Judge Aileen Cannon issued the court order blocking release of that report. The note said Smith separated from the Justice Department on January 10th, which is, of course, Friday. On Truth Social, Donald Trump sharply criticized deranged Jack, labeling him as a disgrace. Trump claimed Smith's efforts were an expensive witch hunt, destroying the lives of many people and families. With just 1 week to go until Donald Trump's second presidential inauguration, the U.S. Senate has a busy week ahead of it with a number of confirmation hearings. Tomorrow at 9:30 a.m., Defense Department nominee, former Fox News anchor and military veteran Pete Hegseth. At 10 a.m., there's a hearing for Interior Department nominee, former governor of North Dakota Doug Burgum. On Wednesday, it's Homeland Security Department nominee, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. That's at 9. And Attorney General nominee, former Florida AG Pam Bondi. That's going to take place at 9:30. And then at 10 a.m., it's CIA Director nominee and former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe, as well as Secretary of State nominee Florida Senator Marco Rubio. On Thursday at 10 a.m., it's former New York Congressman nominated to head the EPA, Lee Zeldin. Now, 3 of the more controversial picks, Kash Patel at FBI, former Hawaii Congresswoman and Director of National Intelligence nominee Tulsi Gabbard, and Health and Human Services nominee Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have yet to be scheduled. Greg.
Be an interesting week. With their new majority in Congress, Republicans will be working to protect babies that survive abortions. Life News reports Senate Majority Leader John Thune is planning to hold a procedural vote this month on the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. The legislation calls for infants born alive after an attempted abortion to receive the same protection of law and degree of care as any newborn. Thune has a message for his Democrat colleagues.
This vote will ask Democrats to answer whether a living baby born after an attempted abortion should be provided with medical care or be left to die.
Missouri Congresswoman Ann Wagner sponsored the House version of the bill and said as a Catholic she is committed to getting it passed. Thune is reportedly planning the vote for January 24th to coincide with the March for Life. Joining us now is Mass Exodus Movement founder and the host of the Keisha King podcast. Keisha, welcome back to Victory News.
Thanks for having me.
Question here. Are you surprised Representative Ann Wagner of Missouri must offer a bill that guarantees infants born during an attempted abortion to the same protections of care for other newborn babies?
It's not surprising, but it is disheartening, that we are in a place, this place in America, where we have to have bills to say, yes, you must protect the life of a child that survives an abortion. It is horrific to even think about that, that we have to have these kind of conversations, but I would rather have them than have more babies just be left on a table, as that the old Virginia governor said that we should do if a quote-unquote botched abortion happens. So I'd rather have this than have babies continue to lose their life.
Okay, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance is warning Americans, he did this yesterday, that the Democrats are preparing a new narrative to attack Donald Trump's plan to deport people here illegally. Listen to this.
Family separation. I think it's important. That's a euphemism. That is a dishonest term to hide behind the fact that Joe Biden has not done border enforcement. If you come into this country illegally, you need to go back home. You need to have basic law enforcement. And what the Democrats are going to do is they're going to hide behind this. They're going to say that this is all about compassion for families.
All right, family separation. Keisha, let's follow the logic. If a guy is convicted of an imprisonable crime, just a regular guy, they're going to be separated from their family. He's going to be in prison. So if you break into the United States and violate our laws, should the result be different?
No, it should not. I mean, let's just tell the truth about what the left is doing. They try to use these terms to play on your emotions. That is all this is for. They're going to start saying this again, separation of families on loop on the mainstream media to pull on the heartstrings of Americans. But we have to remain strong and know that this is just a tactic for them to allow more illegals into this country, to get the Trump administration to fall back, a little bit, and maybe not deport so many people, but do not fall victim to their devices, because what they're doing is illegal. It is illegal when these people cross our borders illegally, and they need to be sent back.
It's always amazing how they change the narrative. Now, the Washington Free Beacon is reporting Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass had a memo erased from the city website from LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley, begging the mayor and the fire commission for help. It stated staffing, deployment, and size of the LAFD has not changed since the 1960s. LA is employing firefighters at half the amount per 1,000 residents comparable to big cities. Does the mayor need to own this entire failure?
Absolutely. And these things were in place before this mayor came to be mayor, but LA and California has gotten so many warnings. We had a warning from President Trump about what Gavin Newsom needed to do to rake up the leaves and all the foliage in the mountains and things like that. And none of it was paid attention to. And so, yes, unless and until these people are held accountable, they will continue to mismanage these cities, and they are affecting people's lives. So, yes, she needs to be held accountable. Absolutely.
Democrat Representative Grace Meng of New York has proposed a constitutional amendment. Now, it's a constitutional amendment to lower the national voting age to 16 years old. Is this who should decide who leads America, 16-year-olds?
According to the left, sure. They can pick their own gender. They can, tell their parents if they want. If they can know that they are another gender at 2. So, of course, they can vote at 16, according to the left. This is ridiculous. Our children need to be focused on their education and what they want to do with their careers. They need to worry about civics, but they do not need to be voting at 16. Let children be children and leave the voting to the adults. Clearly, we're struggling enough to figure all this out.
All right. Keisha, thank you so much. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Mike?
Greg, Senator Ron Johnson addressed rampant federal spending last week during an interview with Real America's Voice. The Wisconsin Republican emphasized the need to stop funding the beast to curb federal overreach and excessive regulation.
Prior to the pandemic, we spent $4.4 trillion. Then we went on the COVID spending spree in 2020, spent $6.6 trillion. And for the last 5 years, we spent $6.5 trillion on average.
Johnson added that Joe Biden is proposing spending a whopping, listen to this, $7.3 trillion this year. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are spearheading the Department of Government Efficiency, a non-governmental initiative ordered by Donald Trump to reduce public spending and streamline federal operations. According to The Guardian, working from SpaceX's Washington, D.C. offices, DOGE has already recruited over 50 staffers, aiming for 100 by Donald Trump's inauguration next week. The team has engaged more than a dozen federal agencies, including Treasury, Homeland Security, and the IRS, to identify potential spending cuts and regulatory reductions. Musk initially set a $2 trillion savings target, but has tempered that down to about $1 trillion as more realistic. Tim.
Mike, a popular marathon in Minnesota is offering hundreds of discounted tickets to DEI participants. The sold-out Grandma's Marathon in Duluth says it will offer 500 discounted tickets to the special groups, which include communities of color athletes with disabilities, non-binary, and LGBTIQ athletes. The marathon's website says, in helping with the cost of registration, our organization hopes to open our arms to runners in those communities and to help them feel a sense of belonging within our race, our city, and our sport. Now, the event stipulates the trans-identifying runners who want to be eligible for cash prizes or age division awards must prove their testosterone has been below a certain level for a year, and in some cases longer. They must also have claimed to be a female for at least 4 years. Fior?
Tim, the U.S. Supreme Court will review a lower court decision that blocked the rule from the Biden administration calling for students defrauded by their colleges to receive loan forgiveness. The borrower defense rule has reportedly been used to forgive billions of dollars of student loan debt over the last 4 years. In the past month, the Department of Education has quietly withdrew the latest proposals that would have erased debt from tens of millions of Americans. The department said it didn't have the time to push them through before the Trump administration begins. An 18-year-old Egyptian student attending Virginia's George Mason University was the latest addition to a national security vetting failure after being arrested on multiple terrorism charges in December. The Center for Immigration Studies published a report Friday revealing Abdullah Ezzeldin Taha Mohammed Hassan was arrested for planning a mass casualty attack at the Israeli consulate in New York City. According to the report, the would-be bomber entered the U.S. in July 2022. CIS highlighted that within weeks of entry, his social media accounts alerted the FBI to his support of ISIS. Deportation proceedings were reportedly pending when he enrolled at George Mason University. Hassan allegedly collaborated with an undercover FBI agent about the planned consulate attack. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, this latest arrest brought the vetting failure total to 50. Mike?
Getting high. Now, Facebook and Instagram's parent company Meta announced Friday the termination of its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Just the News reported the move included hiring and training practices as well as picking suppliers, with a memo from the Human Resources Department acknowledging the DEI landscape in the United States, well, it's changing. Axios alleges Meta and other tech companies were aligning with the incoming Trump administration and pointed to the end of fact-checking efforts that occurred on January 7th. However, Mark Zuckerberg told Joe Rogan this about what it was like dealing with the Biden administration in respect to COVID.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse. And it's like these documents it's all kind of out there. They pushed us super hard to take down things that were true.
Zuckerberg indicated he refused to take down things that were inarguably true. And joining us now is senior fellow at the Institute for Faith and Culture and author of The Gay Affair, Harvard, Plagiarism and the Death of Academic Integrity, Dr. Carol Swain. Welcome back to Victory News.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Dr. Swain, so when Meta announced the termination of its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies on Friday, was this a good sign for American business or just a nod to the incoming Trump administration?
Well, there seems to be a trend of companies moving away from DEI. And you may recall in 2023, August, I published The Adversity of Diversity, and I talked about how the Supreme Court's decision to eliminate race-based college admissions would doom DEI programs. And through the work of people like Robbie Starbucks that basically ran with the idea, you see companies one by one, and I say they're doing this because they're trying to avoid lawsuits. DEI, in most cases, violates the Constitution and our civil rights laws, and so it's very practical that tech companies would do this. They don't want to get sued.
Yep, nobody wants to get sued. Now let's talk about your book, The Gay Affair. Claudine Gay is the former president, of course, of Harvard University. She's an African-American woman who rose to head perhaps the finest Ivy League school in the nation. But her work was plagiarized, and you experienced that firsthand. Did you alert Harvard, and what did they do to address that?
I didn't know about it. It occurred 26 years ago, and I learned along with the rest of the world on December 10th, 2023. And in my book, The Gay Affair, I talk about that phone call that I got from Dr. Art Laffer alerting me to the scandal. And then I gave numerous interviews about it, and it was my first knowledge of it. I read her work, was deeply disturbed, and in the book it talks about the steps I followed, including eventually hiring attorneys and pursuing a legal case. I backed away from that because under copyright law, it's a loser pays system. And I also needed anywhere between 150 to 200, anywhere between 100,000 to 250,000 just to get a case to court. And so my book tells my story. It has the legal documents, and anyone that wants to know what happened. Claudine Gay never apologized to me, and her dissertation plagiarized my prize-winning first book.
Wow, and you were on Victory News actually in the days after that news broke. Now, why would Harvard have not done their homework, do you think, on Claudine Gay and dealt with her plagiarism long before she rose to the position of president or even hired her in the first place?
I talked about as a student. I was on the faculty of Princeton at the time. I heard about this brilliant black student at Harvard University, and so her nickname became Brilliant, and I don't think people looked closely at her work. There were allegations of plagiarism, and in the end, it involved 47 instances, numerous people, but my contention is that there would not have been a Claudine Gay dissertation and her work on black congressional representation, that her ideas came from my work, and that Harvard should have been willing to take care of it. They pretty much ignored me.
So is Harvard a victim of DEI, or is it a source of DEI infecting other institutions and even corporations?
I think Claudine Gay is a victim of DEI because she should never have risen to the ranks of Harvard, the Harvard presidency. And colleges and universities that have lowered standards, they are the ones that are creating this problem. And academic integrity has suffered. Colleges and universities need to get back to the business of educating people, get out of the DEI business, and I can guarantee you those institutions will not be lily white if they hold everyone to the same standard.
Yeah, I think so. Well, be sure to get your own copy of The Gay Affair, Harvard, Plagiarism, and the Death of Academic Integrity wherever books are sold. And check out her take on key issues in our culture at BeTheNewsPeep.com. Dr. Swain, thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you.
Fior.
Mike, the University of Michigan on Friday announced it ended its partnership with a Chinese university due to rising national security concerns, according to the South China Morning Post. The decision was made 3 months after the House Select Committee on China sent a letter to the University of Michigan's president. The letter charged that Shanghai Jiaotong University played a, quote, critical role in the Chinese Communist Party's military-civil fusion strategy. In October, 5 Chinese University of Michigan students, a part of the joint program, were charged with misleading authorities about their activities near a remote U.S. military site called Camp Grayling. In a statement on Friday, Michigan Republican Congressman John Molinar released a statement commending the University of Michigan for making, quote, the right decision. The congressman said more universities should follow suit. Tim?
Thank you, Fior. Now with the latest on Israel's war to defend itself, here's ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The IDF downed a drone over southern Israel this morning that was launched by the Houthis in Yemen. The drone was destroyed by a helicopter near the southern community of Gvulot. Overnight, the IDF struck a series of Hezbollah sites in Lebanon after the ceasefire mechanism failed to address threats. Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. President Biden spoke about the potential hostage for ceasefire deal being deliberated in Doha. Just over a week before the end of his term, Biden strongly urged Netanyahu to reach a deal before the Trump inauguration. Amid an anti-terror crackdown in Judea and Samaria, IDF and police forces foiled an imminent terror attack before it was launched. 2 terrorists from the town of Kabatio were arrested in the joint operation, both affiliated with Islamic Jihad. They were arrested in a car carrying automatic weapons, vests, face masks, and a great deal of ammunition.
Steve Leibowitz for ILTV and Victory News.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for continuing to join us in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem and an end to terrorism worldwide. Greg?
Always be vigilant. That's what we're learning from the Israelis. Once again, let's talk with the Mass Exodus Movement founder and Victory News contributor, Keisha King. Keisha, last week you posted Joe Rogan's podcast with Christian apologist Wesley Huff on your X account. Here's a clip of him discussing how Jordan Peterson sees Christianity but misses the true message of Jesus. Here it is.
And I'd love to talk to him about this. Like, how do you remedy this issue that, because he seems to think that the concept of Jesus as an example is more important than the actual flesh and blood first century itinerant Jewish preacher who was crucified and rose from the dead physically, which is the claim of the Gospels and the rest of the New Testament.
You think people like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson are beginning to see the value of Christianity over secular atheism in our culture?
I do. I think that they're coming around as kind of cultural Christians, but my prayer for them is that they actually embrace the risen Christ and welcome him into their hearts and become saved, and so we can welcome them into our family, because this is it's beyond time. This is eternity we're talking about, where they're going to go. I am so grateful to God for Joe Rogan talking about this and having such a brilliant man like Wesley Huff on his channel, and just the explosion of Christian content that is coming out, coming to reach the nation. So it is blessing my heart that people are getting to see, to hear the word, to hear the gospel.
Yeah, so many paths are being opened. So to find out more about Keisha King and the Mass Exodus Movement, visit KeishaKing.com or MassExodusMovement.com. Always great to have you with us. And thank you for being here today, Keisha.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, a little bit of bittersweet news for you as we go today. The former University of Colorado football coach, who also started the Christian men's movement called the Promise Keepers, has died. In 1990, Bill McCartney, affectionately called Coach Mac, led the Colorado Buffaloes football team to their only national championship when they defeated Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. But Coach Mac's legacy goes far beyond football. He opted to leave coaching at the height of his career to found the Promise Keepers and boldly lead countless men and boys to live for God. Listen to one of the portions of one of his messages.
For his grace and power are such, none can ever ask too much. Our God is sovereign. Our God is holy. Our God is righteous. And our God is calling us.
You look what Coach Deion Sanders has done in Colorado now. There's the predecessor to it. In 2016, McCartney's family announced he was battling dementia and Alzheimer's. Coach Mac remains the winningest coach in Colorado history with a record of 93, 55, and 5. But his record in winning souls continues on.
While Coach McCartney has gone on to glory, there are still many men who need to know about the love of Jesus Christ. And that is what we aim to do here at Promise Keepers.
Bill McCartney was 84. 877-281-6297, 877-281-6297. Phone number you can call, and a licensed prayer minister will pray with you concerning things going on in your life. We bless Coach McCartney in his memory. Our thanks to Dr. Carol Swain, Keisha King, and especially you. Thanks for joining today. We return at 5 Eastern, 4 Central with Heritage Foundation Senior Legal Fellow Zach Smith and America's Frontline Doctors, Dr. Jeffrey Barkey. Make sure you're here as well. The world reports the problem. Victory Channel brings the answer. Whatever is born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that's overcome the world, our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. Stay in faith. God bless you. See you this evening. Bye for now.